This is an instructional video to show you how to mount saddlebags on the V-Star 250. Searching around the internet, my wife, this is my wife's bike, and she wanted a set of saddlebags on the rear of this bike. I searched around to a bunch of different places. There is no saddlebags for this bike. If you got a 650 or up, they make bags to fit the bike, but short of that, if you have a 250 and you're wanting to put saddlebags on it, you're SOL. So in order to alleviate that, because she had to have these saddlebags on this bike, she insisted that she wanted some, so we bought her some. We bought her this style of bag. It's one that saddles over the fender, just like standard bags do for the bigger bikes. They're small square bags. We tried to not use the slanted ones because they were, they just don't utilize the real estate. They look cool, but with that slanted bag, it's kind of hard to fit stuff that's tall in the bag without eating up all your room. So we opted for the vertical ones. They're nice bags. They're made out of leather, but when you try to graft them on this bike, they will not fit. I mean, there's not much you can do. So I looked into trying to mod the bike up. My wife had a couple parameters I had to work in. One was she didn't want the turn signals moved, which probably would have been the best because I could have used a hanger bolt in the turn signal hole and then moved the turn signals back. Probably would have been better, but she did not want them moved, so we had to opt for another way. The thing you'll find the hardest is trying to find brackets to fit this bike. They don't make any. So the best thing you can do is take the brackets for a V-Star 650 and use those. They fit within the shock area. As you can see, they stick out far enough that they should hold the bag off the tire. They ride right next to where the shock the shock springs are, so it shouldn't interfere with any of the travel or anything. They might rub on the inside a little bit, but most bags will. First thing you want to do is get a set of these brackets off eBay. They're about 30 bucks, I think, is what I paid for them. Just look for these standard, typical brackets on eBay. They fit a V-Star 650. They're beveled out to stick off the fender a little ways for bag clearance. They're like 30 bucks. The next thing you'll need to do is get you some metric 10 millimeter washers and some bolts to modify this bike. The first thing I got was this cap bolt here. This is real short on the V-Star, and the other thing that I had a problem with was the recessed area that the bolt fit into. What you'll find is if you try to mount this bracket directly to this hole with a longer bolt, you'll find that the bracket hits the frame before you get the bolt tight. So what I did was I stuck 3 10 millimeter washers, flat washers, inside the hole. You can see them in there, and that'll shim it out far enough. And what's good is that the 10 millimeter washers, just the standard ones you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, they fit in that hole perfectly. You slide them in and they won't shake around, move around, or anything like that. So this bolt here is 2.5 inches long. I had opted for a longer bolt because of that standoff. You'll need this 2.5 inch bolt. You'll need a nut, lock washer, and a washer for it. This bolt is a 3/8 bolt. It's not a metric bolt. I went with the 3/8 hardware because it was just easier to get at Lowe's. Trying to find a 10 millimeter in a hex head at Lowe's is extremely tough. If you go to Fastenal, you can probably find something, but at Lowe's or Home Depot, any of those guys, you can pretty much hang it up. So, but they did sell the 3/8 bolt, which is very close to the same size. So I got that. The other thing is with the rear turn signal. The stock on these bikes is close to 12 millimeter. It's probably more like, it might be 10 millimeter, it might be just a skosh over. I think it is 10 millimeter now that I come think of it. The holes in there, I got these brackets at a Harley shop online. It's called Debrix, Debrix. They're Harley exhaust brackets. They come with 3/8 inch holes. They're made like this J here, as you can see, and it gives you a mounting point for the back end of your bracket, so that because you can't use the turn signal stock. It's just too short. So I got these brackets. These were like, I think, 10 bucks. They're not very expensive. They were already chrome plated. They're pretty cheap. The bolt here that's used across the center here is that's a 3/8 bolt, so it fits the 3/8 hole that's in there. I used a fine thread because on the nut side I had to take and shave half the bolt away for the clearance on the bracket. You could probably drill the hole all the way through and probably clamp it together and put the nut on the backside, but I just didn't want anything close to the fender where it could possibly scratch the fender or dent it or something like that, so that's why I opted to do it this way. I just shaved the nut down right there, and this bolt was 1.5 inch bolt, had most of the threads on it, typical at Lowe's, 3/8 inch bolt, 24 pitch. I took and cut the bolt down enough to fit inside the bracket and still clamp on the metal part of the bracket for the saddlebags onto the back. As you can see, it fits in there pretty well. Nothing real fancy there, just something to give it some stability there. And as you can see, the bracket is pretty tough. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's not supporting your load, it's merely keeping it off the tire. So it should be plenty hard enough, especially with this front mount where it mounts onto the frame. That's pretty rigid, that's not going anywhere. The back fender might flex a little bit, but I don't think you'll have any issue there. Once you get both sides done, as you can see, I got both sides done. They're already pinned up, buttoned up, everything's tight, it's pretty rigid. Not really going anywhere. I could probably pull the bike over pulling on this. And as you can see from the back view, the bracket rides right in line with the shock, which is where you want it to be to keep the bag off the wheel. The next part, once you get all this bolted on, what I did was I drilled the hole out in the center. It was a 3/8 hole, but I had to bore this to 10mm. So what I did was I bored the hole in the bracket to 10mm and then put a rubber washer in behind it. One of the things on the V-Star is that the fender has a little nipple sticking out on it that the turn signal stalk fits into to keep it from turning. Now what you'll have to do is grind a slot in this bracket to fit that nipple so that the bracket can't turn. The rubber will press up into the crease of the bracket, and the groove you cut in the bracket for that little dimple on the fender to fit, and it'll keep it from moving around. And once you get it all tight, the stalk's plain long enough to put a nut on there and you can still make it all fit without changing the stalk. The next part was the back seat, because when you sit these bags on this bike, these saddlebags that sit across, and excuse it if my camera is a little shaky, but when you sit these bags on this bike, one thing you'll notice is you'll have a really hard time getting that rear seat back on. It just will not fit. The seat is made to be low slung and keep it nice and close to the fender as possible. What I had to do with that is shim this bracket. I had to shim this up into the air a little bit, and also had to shim the back bracket on the seat with some washers. And what I did was I stuck standard 10mm washers. I put 3 of them inside the seat, which I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a stack of 3 10mm washers under there. The bolt's plain long enough to tighten it back up to get it back on. Put you 3 washers up underneath there, and then on the front seat bracket I used 3 fender washers. And the reason I use fender washers is because the bolts or the nuts on the inside of the fender are like part of the fender, the hole is kind of big on the inside toward the bracket because it utilizes all that bracket flat area to kind of give it some reinforcement. If you use standard washers, it'll probably wind up loosening over time or wind up creasing your fender. So I put 3 fender washers in there to kind of give it a little bit more real estate to rock on so it can't go nowhere. It fits real tight. It's adequate clearance and should look pretty good. I've already fitted the back seat. It does fit. I can get the nut and the cap nut back onto the back again right here on this stud, and the seat rests on these leather the leather cross pieces here that are all laced together. They fit on there, and that the seat will have something firm to sit on. The other thing you'll have to do is on the bottom of the seat there are these 2 little rubber, I think they were resting against the front, the fender for the bottom of the seat. They fit in these 2 holes here. They'll need removed so that the leather on the seat, on the saddlebags, can sit on there. If you try to leave them rubber things in there, they'll just wind up getting damaged and causing you more trouble. Well, I hope this thing was I hope this helps out somebody sometime. It's about the best I can do with it, but it should look good when it's done. What I'll try to do is patch on a video onto the end of this and show you what the completed assembly looks like, and hopefully this will help somebody out. There's probably about $30 for the brackets and another $20 in washers, nuts, and bolts to make this happen in just a little time. So after about an hour and a half, 2 hours of working on it, I think we're going to have a good set of saddlebags on this bike that we won't have to worry about either flying off or looking funny. So if you got any questions, post in the comment area. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.